afternoon. Was contacted today by a viewer, and they asked me about a post I made on Facebook about an acrylic blank that broke and stuff like that with me. So, and basically I told him, I don't use those blanks anymore. I pretty much cast all my own blanks now. And he was asking, well, how do you do that? And I was like, well, a couple of other people have asked me if I would do some casting videos, and I'm like, yeah, sure. These blanks that you buy, they can get very expensive. At least in my book, very expensive. Anywhere from around $4 to $10 dollars, maybe even more, for one blank, like one pen blank. This size right here. And well, I found it's more economical to cast them myself, although it does take more time and all that. But being out here in the shop for me is just a hobby. So I'm always out here doing something, and I've kind of got into casting a couple of years ago, and man, I really like it, and I've got a few things figured out, and I will try to share some of them with you. I'm going to be casting some pen blanks in this video, but I mean, you could use the exact same methods to cast bottle stopper blanks or any type of acrylic blanks that you want to cast. So but anyway, let's get to it. I want to show you some of the pens that I've made from my blanks, and then we'll get right into casting. Okay, here's some of my cast acrylic blanks and some of my stabilized wood and things like that. This here is a stabilized wood. You may have seen that video that I did. I believe it was back last November or December. This is a stabilized wood, but it's also cast with voids. I cast all the voids full of resin. These are cast. They're polyester resins, these two, and then the rest are all an Alumilite product. This one here actually has pieces of pine cones inside it. So anyway, we'll get started and look at how this stuff comes out. Here is some of my blanks that I've made. This one here is it's pure acrylic blank, and of course I've cut it. It looks kind of dull around the edges where I cut it, but you can kind of see here what it'll look like once it's turned and polished. This was a stabilized blank of spalted pecan, and all these areas here you can see, and down here and all, that was those were areas where the wood had voids in it. It was like this piece here. It has voids and all of that. Well, I'll stabilize the wood and I'll fill the voids with the resins, and just see what you get. You get some really neat looking blanks. And this is another one here. The blank has been stabilized. It's very hard. It's not like this here. It's basically crumbling. Okay, to start with, you're going to need a way to measure. You're going to need a way to measure your resins, okay, to make sure you get the right proportions and things like that, okay, to make sure you get it correct. Then you're going to need your resin, and the resin that I use is this right here. It's called Amazing, and I get it from the Hobby Lobby. And at the Hobby Lobby, you know, this is the size bottles that you get. I believe it's 16 ounce. Actually, I get about 6 pen blanks out of these 2 bottles here. But it's made by Alumilite, and I like Alumilite. That it's just I like that stuff. But this resin here, it takes about 6 hours to set up, and it takes about 24 hours before you want to demold it and use it as a pen blank or whatever blank you want to use. I use some different types of pigments and colors and dyes and things like that for casting. The dyes that I use are made by Alumilite. This is blue, I have red and yellow, and from those 3 colors I can get several different colors. I can make orange and green and pink and different colors like that. So those are the main colors that I bought to begin with. Of course, you can buy lots of other different colors, but the Alumilite is supposedly formulated for dyeing resins, or your acrylic resins and things like that. So, you know, I use it. Also, I use these powdered pigments sometimes. It's called Pearl X, and I get those at the Hobby Lobby also, but you can find them all over the internet. And those things kind of add like a gold leaf, gold flake type, pearlescent type finish. A vacuum chamber or a pressure pot to get your air bubbles out. And my vacuum pump right here. If you saw my video, this is my compressor that I converted into a vacuum pump. If you use vacuum, if you use pressure, if you use a pressure pot, of course you'll have to use a compressor. Alright, so let's get started mixing up and getting ready to cast a couple of pen blanks here. Are these little paper cups to measure these out. Okay, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to first of all take my cup, set it up there. I'll turn on my scale, and I'll just measure out. I know that it takes about 3 ounces of resin to fill one of these molds. This stuff mixes 50-50 by volume, not by weight, but by volume. So I need to fill this up. I need 3 ounces, so I'm going to fill it up to 1.5 ounces, and then I'll use my second cup and I'll fill it up the same distance, because it's by volume, it's not by weight. You have to be very careful and read your instructions on that. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to try to pour 1.5 ounces of part A. And Alumilite sells a lot of this stuff online. You can find it at their website. Uh-oh, too much. Not just about perfect. Of course, you know, it's not rocket science either. But there's 1.5 ounces right there. Okay, I don't need the scales anymore. I don't need them anymore. But now what I do need is a good light so I can see through this cup and get the same amounts in both. Now for the part B, I'm just going to pour it in until it's even, about even with the other. That's close right there. Alright. Now, you'll also need something to stir your resin with, and I just like using plastic knives. They work really good, and when I get through, I can just wipe it off with a paper towel. Let me go ahead and grab it. I can just wipe it off with a paper towel, just like so. And it'll be ready to go the next time. So let's see what, I'm going to mix these first, just like so. I'm going to pour the part B into part A. And I'll kind of wrinkle that a little bit and let it just kind of hang there for a second and let it all drain. My mold also, I have little bottom pieces, bottom plates, which support it. So I can lift the mold up without it wanting to bend and contort and things like that. And that really works good. I found that out the very first time I tried to use the mold. Alright, now we're good there. Okay, so let's say I want to cast a red pen blank. And these Alumilite dyes, they go a long way. I've got 3 ounces of resin in here. I'm going to put about 4 or 6 drops per ounce. So I'm going to go about 18 to 20 drops. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Alright. You know, and of course, you know, you want to experiment and find out how you want to do yours. And I'll also take another secondary cup. This is just a little plastic cup, but it'll be alright. And I'm just going to start mixing. And mixing this stuff is extremely important that you get it all mixed thoroughly. Now I'm not going to worry about mixing it slow or anything to keep the air bubbles out. I'm just simply going to do this, because when I put it under vacuum, all those bubbles will go away. I'll suck them all right out of there. But you have to mix it very thoroughly. Get around the edges and around on the bottom. Boy, look how deep, rich red that is. That's just beautiful. But now this is kind of translucent. It's not actually opaque. So when you put your pen barrel inside your pen blank, you'll be able to see through this. You'll have to paint that pen barrel or paint the inside of the blank so that you don't see your barrel kind of shining through. But I'll mix until I don't see any swirls. Once you don't see any swirls anymore, then it's thoroughly mixed. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour a little bit of this off into here. Not much. You know, just some. And the rest goes into the mold after I spray it with cooking oil. So I'll just spray the mold a little bit with some cooking oil. Wipe it around in there with my fingers and get the whole mold covered really well. This cooking oil will not harm your blanks in any way, but it will. I'm using it as a releasing agent. Release agent is extremely expensive, and I found that it doesn't work as well as the canola oil. Alright, now I'll pour a little bit more in here. Alright, here we go. I'm going to pour it up. Okay, I'll wipe that off. Okay, now I can use one of my pigments. And on this one I'm going to choose the gold. It's like a gold pigment, or a Pearl-Ex powder. And it doesn't take much. Maybe, well, that's a little bit too much. There we go. About this much. Just going to drop it in there and mix that up. And the second one. And you start really getting some cool looking colors. Mix that really well. So these are powders. And the powders, you know, they can kind of clump up a little bit. Well, you don't want that. Okay, now I'm just going to pour this in. Boy, that's going to be pretty. Now you can leave it just like that if you would like. But I don't much care to do that. I'll just take my little knife and I'll just, you know, kind of move this stuff around just a little. Pull it to all the different corners. And there we go. We are ready to cast this. Okay, now you can try to leave that sitting there just like that until the mold hardens, or until it hardens up. But I'm going to put it in vacuum. Oh, always make sure you put your lid back over this. I'm going to put it under vacuum. And that'll pull all the air out of it. I'm just going to use my vacuum chamber right here. I'm going to try to get you set up so you can see it a little better. I'll be right back. Get ready to set in our pin blanks. We'll set it right in here. Put the lid on. Should have used 3.5 ounces instead of... Okay, so now let me see if you can see that. Perhaps you can see it pretty well. Alright, now I'm just going to turn on my vacuum chamber and we'll start pulling the air out of this thing. You can see steam building or coming out of it already. You'll see the little air bubbles start popping on the top. And I'll explain to you later why I like vacuum over pressure. About 24 inches of mercury, so I'm going to shut it off. And we'll just let this sit here until it quits bubbling. On these blanks, it generally takes me about 10 minutes until I don't see any bubbles popping anymore. And while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to go ahead and explain to you what I like about vacuum versus pressure. Alright. Okay, so why do I use vacuum versus pressure? Well, there's controversy on this, you know, and of course everybody's got their favorite way of doing it. This is my favorite way of doing it. Okay, if you like pressure, use pressure. But I went to the Alumilite website to actually see what they recommend. And Alumilite recommends pressure, you know, in a pressure pot. But they also, you know, say that vacuum's fine also. So they explain it in a way that really made sense to me, and basically what happens is when you put your blanks in a pressure pot, your resins and all are in a pressure pot, and you pressurize it with your air compressor to about, I believe it's 60 psi max, and it takes all those air bubbles that are inside your resin and it crunches them down, very small, microscopic size, which virtually eliminates them. And you leave it in there under pressure until your resin cures, and then it cures with the air bubbles so small that nobody can see them, you can't detect them. So, and that works. But my theory behind it is, and I've seen other people that will back me up on it too, is that under vacuum the bubbles expand. Well, when they expand, they come to the top and they pop. So once the bubbles stop coming to the top of this, of my vacuum, in my vacuum chamber, I can take it out, and you know, it's not gonna, air's not gonna penetrate back into the resin. So I have no air in it. They're not just made small, there's no air, and I have no air bubble. In about 10 minutes all the air will be out of the resins, and it's cast, it's ready to go. All I have to do then is wait for it to harden, but at the same time I could be putting more in my vacuum chamber. So, you know, every 10 minutes I could be mixing more and putting more in the vacuum chamber, and it works out for me. So that's why I like vacuum. Alright, I don't know if you can see it, but I still have little bubbles coming to the surface and popping. It's been about 8 minutes. They're still coming up. They're very slow coming up now, but they're still doing it. So I'm going to leave it in there at about 23, 24 inches of mercury worth of vacuum, just to you know, make sure all of them come out. It looks kind of foamy a little bit at the top. That's those little bitty bubbles that's come up, and they just haven't popped yet, but they will. But I always use a whenever I cast, if I have any leftover resins or anything like that, I always use another mold. I keep another mold, and this mold was kind of a reject. It was the very first one I did. It didn't work out very well for me, but it's still the right size. And you can see right here I'm casting. But whenever I finish, you know, a cast, if I've got extra resin, I just pour it in here. And before I pour any more in it, I'll scratch the surface up with, you know, like 400 grit sandpaper. I'll scratch that up and I'll pour another layer. It doesn't matter what color it is, you know, because it's just a blank, and you can really end up with some really interesting blanks by the end. You can see kind of, you know, different color layers in here and things like, you see the bottom. That's where I screwed my mold up. But I mean, it still works, so I'm not that worried about it. But yeah, and I just keep pouring more and more until I get that one full, and it sets up. Then I'll take that blank out, and I'll have 2 pen blanks there, and I've wasted no resin. So, alright, well, I'll be back tomorrow once this is cured up, and I will see you then. We'll pull that out, and I'll go ahead and I'll saw these blanks down so you can see what they turned out like. Alright, well, let's see what it looks like after about 24 hours. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. With no air in it. Now, with the cooking spray that I used, you can see it just spreads out and separates, and right there's your blanks. There's the blanks. Right. I'm going to put this on the saw and we'll cut it right quick. Well, alright. 2 cast acrylic pen blanks. They're fun to do yourself, and for the cost that these bottles cost, actually buying them retail, the amazing, each one of these ends up costing just under $4. That's $4. That's $4. It's still cheaper than most online blanks that you can buy. So, hey, and you made them yourself, and you can get some really cool looking colors just experimenting with different layers of colors and different dyes and pigments and stuff like that. I like the Alumilite myself. I've used the polyester resins, and I'm not really big on them. They seem to be a little bit more brittle than the Alumilite blanks. I don't know if it's the way it's formulated or what, but the Alumilite really seems to turn better on the lathe, and you know, if you drop it, it doesn't shatter. So, but anyway, I hope that answered the questions that I was getting about casting acrylic and how I do it. I really enjoy doing it. I've sold a lot of pens like that, and you know, I like vacuum. I like it over pressure, just simply because I don't actually have to leave it in the chamber until the resins cure. I can take it out once the air gets out of it. You know, I can take it out of the chamber, and you know, and I'm done. All I have to do is let it harden then. But I hope y'all enjoyed this one, and I'm going to do a few more videos with acrylics and different ways of casting and stuff that I've done. I've cast some with pine cones in it, things like that, and just experimenting around, and they really look cool when you put other pieces and stuff in there. I've seen some with Legos in it. That was pretty cool, you know, and things like that. But y'all have a good day, and we'll see y'all on down the road.